Why far-right AfD is popular in once communist East Germany. The far-right Alternative for Germany will be the second largest party in the Bundestag after it secured almost 21% of the vote in federal election on Sunday. The for Germany, the Alternative for Germany, far-right Alternative for Germany will be likely to will be likely kept out of government by number one and number three parties in parliament, Christian Democratic Union and Christian Social Union, and the Social Democratic Party. Yet the performance of the party that has long been treated as untouchable by political mainstream marks a dramatic shift in the political landscape of Germany. The alternative far right for Germany, the far right alternative for Germany has doubled its vote share from 10% in 2021. The alternative far right for Germany, the far right alternative for Germany won 36.2% vote share in eastern Germany and 18% in the west, while it has got votes in almost every constituency in this election. Parliamentary has traditionally enjoyed greater popularity in the east of the country, in areas that made up the communist German Democratic Republic before the reunification. Why? Formed in 2013, the Alternative for Germany started out as a party that opposed Germany bailing out other countries, mainly Greece, during the Eurozone crisis. It won 4.7% of the vote in the election that year. The Alternative for Germany has since adopted various far-right populist and nativist positions, opposing migrants, especially Muslim migrants, rejecting climate action, and arguing that Germany suffered from excessive guilt for Nazi-era atrocities. Its campaign message in the current election focused on immigration control and deportations, abandoning the euro, leaving the NATO alliance, and returning to nuclear energy. The party has also opposed Germany sending more aid to Ukraine in its ongoing war with Russia. The alternative for Germany's message has resonated. The AfD, formed in 2013, AfD started out as a party that opposed Germany bailing out other countries, mainly Greece, during the Eurozone crisis. It won 4.7% of vote share in the election that year. The Alternative for Germany has since adopted various far-right, populist and nativist positions, opposing migrants, especially Muslim migrants, rejecting climate action, and arguing that Germany suffered from excessive guilt for Nazi-era atrocities. Its campaign message in the current election focused on immigration control and deportations, abandoning the euro, leaving the NATO alliance, and returning to nuclear energy. The party has also proposed Germany sending more aid to Ukraine in its ongoing war with Russia. The alternative for Germany's message has resonated especially in the former East Germany, whose economy has historically been worse off than the West and whose younger population often moves to the West in search of better education and job opportunities. The disparity is to a large extent the product of the East specific demands not getting enough attention after reunification in 1990, resentment against former Chancellor Angela Merkel's policy of spending money on helping other European countries when many Germans' own citizens needed attention and aid was highest in the East. The economic gap has persisted as the aging population of the East finds itself at odds with the more multicultural, prosperous, and younger West. The alternative for Germany has capitalized on the discontent. It has sought to portray the East as more authentically German than the concept. Mixed up West. In 2014, the alternative for Germany, then a very new outfit, won 7 seats in the European Parliament. In September 15, it won 12.2% of the vote in Brandenburg, 10.6% in Thuringia, and 9.7% in Saxony, all in former East Germany. The AfD's message about immigrants stealing the jobs of local people and altering German life and culture is more popular in the East, so it stands on climate action. But some experts say that economic factors explain the AFD's popularity in the formerly communist region only in part. In its electoral campaigns, the AFDs very effectively tapped into an experience that is widely shared among East Germans, that you don't make yourself heard through voting by engaging yourself in political parties, civic groups, or unions, but by mobilizing the masses for street protest. Also, it has been argued that West Germany worked harder on moving away from the country's Nazi past, thus became more and thus became more resistant so far right ideologies. The East German regime, on the other hand, tended to treat the post-war socialist state as a new beginning altogether, a clear break from fascism. Yet other experts see the success of AFD as consistent with the rise of right in much of Europe. To them, the resistance to far right in the West appears as more remarkable phenomena than it gains in the East. How can India cut urea, DAP, and MOP consumption? The shortage of DAP has given a boost to sales of APS, a complex fertilizer that has become India's third largest selling plant nutrient product after urea and DAP. APS. The shortage of DAP has given boost to the sales of APS. The shortage of DAP has given boost to the sales of APS. The shortage of DAP has given boost to the sales of APS. Capping or reducing the consumption of urea, diammonium phosphate, and muriate of potash has become a strategic imperative of sorts for India. The reason all these fertilizers are imported, whether directly or as inputs for domestic manufacturing, MOPS is wholly imported from countries such as Canada, Russia, Jordan, Israel, Turkmenistan, Belarus, as India has no mineable potash reserves. MOP is wholly imported from countries such as Canada, Russia, Jordan, Israel, Turkmenistan, and Belarus, as India has no mineable potash reserves. In urea, India's production meets over 85% of its consumption demand, but the plants mostly run on liquefied natural gas imports from Qatar, US, UAE, or Angola. DAP is imported in the form of finished fertilizer, mainly from Saudi Arabia, China, Morocco, Russia, and Jordan, as well as raw material rock phosphate from Jordan, Morocco, Togo, Egypt, and Algeria, and sulfur from UAE, Qatar, and Oman, and immediate chemicals, phosphoric acid from Jordan, Morocco, Senegal, and Tunisia, ammonia from Saudi, Qatar, Oman, and Indonesia. Capping or reducing the consumption of urea, diammonium phosphate, and muriate of potash. Diammonium phosphate and muriate of potash has become a strategic imperative of sorts in India. The reason all these fertilizers are imported, whether directly or as inputs for domestic manufacturing. All these fertilizers are imported, whether directly or as inputs for domestic manufacturing. MOP is wholly imported from countries such as Canada, Russia, Jordan, Israel, Turkmenistan, Belarus, and India has no mineable potash reserves. India has no mineable potash reserve, so muriate of potash is directly or wholly imported. In urea, India's production meets over 85% of its consumption demand, but the plants mostly run on LNG imported from Qatar, US, UAE, and Angola. In India, India's production uh, meets over 85% of its consumption demand, but the plants run mostly on LNG. DAP is imported in the form of finished fertilizer, mainly from Saudi Arabia, China, Morocco, and Russia and Jordan, as well as raw material rock phosphate from Jordan, Morocco, Togo, Egypt, and Algeria. Sulfur from UAE, Qatar, and Oman, and immediate intermediate chemicals, phosphoric acid from Jordan, Morocco, Senegal, Tunisia, ammonia from Saudi, Qatar, Oman, Indonesia. Besides import dependence, made worse by the depreciation of the rupee, a second reason for limiting urea, DAP, and MOP usage is that they are high analysis fertilizers. Urea and MOP contain 46% nitrogen, 60% potash, respectively. DAP has 46% phosphorus plus 18% nitrogen. A second reason for limiting the urea, DAP, and MOP usage is that they are high analysis fertilizers. Urea and MOP contain 46% nitrogen and 60% potash, respectively, and diammonium phosphate contains 46% phosphorus plus 18% nitrogen. Most crops don't require fertilizers with such high percentage of individual nutrients. They need balanced fertilization product with nutrients in the right quantities and ratios for effective absorption through the plant roots and leaves. These include not only NPK but also secondary nutrients, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, and micronutrients, zinc, iron, copper, boron, manganese, and molybdenum. Micronutrients: zinc, copper, iron, boron, manganese, and molybdenum. Weaning away farmers from high analysis fertilizers also translates into more efficient use of imported material and scarce foreign exchange. A good example is 2020-013 or ammonium phosphate sulfate complex. A good example is 2020-013 or ammonium phosphate sulfate APS, ammonium phosphate sulfate, a complex fertilizer with 20% nitrogen, 20% phosphorus, 0% potassium, and 13% sulfur. 2020-0K. 2020-013, it has emerged as an effective substitute for DAP despite having less than half of the latter's P content. DAP is manufactured by importing merchant grade phosphoric acid with 50 to 54% phosphorus content and reacting it with ammonia. The end product is 18% nitrogen and 46% phosphorus. But companies can import rock phosphate with 28 to 36% phosphorus and react it with sulfuric acid. The resultant is weak phosphoric acid with only 27 to 29% phosphorus, further reacting with ammonia and sulfuric acid to produce 2020-013. Alternatively, they can import normal strong phosphoric acid while using less of its for simultaneously reacting with sulfuric acid and ammonia to make APS. The idea is not to waste expensive phosphoric acid. Making 1 ton of DAP requires 460 kgs of phosphoric acid and 220 kg of ammonia. Here you use only 220 to 230 kg of phosphoric acid, 220 kg of ammonia, 1200 kg of sulfuric acid to get 1 ton of 2020-013. APS, according to Prasad, is good for oilseed, pulses, maize, cotton, onion, chili, and other sulfur-hungry crops. Even the P and K nutrients requirements of potato can be effectively met through 10-26-26-0 or 12-32-16-0 complex fertilizers. We should reserve DAP use for only wheat, rice, and sugarcane. We should reserve DAP use for only wheat, rice, and sugarcane. We should reserve DAP use, diammonium phosphate, for wheat, rice, and sugarcane. We should reserve DAP use only for wheat, rice, and sugarcane. We should reserve DAP use for only for wheat, rice, and sugarcane. Sales of 2020-013 recorded a 32.4% jump from 4.9 million tons in April-January 24-25 and 6.5 million tons in April-January 23-24, while dipping by 14.1% for DAP. The current fiscal could end with an all-time high of APS sales of 7 million tons and DAP at 9 million tons, the lowest since 2017. APS has become the India's third largest consumed fertilizer after urea. APS is ammonium, phosphorus, and sulfuric acid. No? Ammonium phosphorus phosphate sulfate, ammonium phosphate sulfate, ammonium phosphate sulfate. Ammonium phosphate sulfate has become India's third largest consumed fertilizer or urea and DAP. It has overtaken single superphosphate, previously the most popular alternative in DAP. SSP, which contains 16% phosphorus, 11% sulfur, is manufactured by reacting rock phosphate directly with sulfuric acid. Ammonium phosphate sulfate was traditionally consumed in South and West Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat, but in the last 4 to 5 years, its acceptability has increased in the east and even north and across crops. It is a stable product with phosphorus in water soluble form, besides having nitrogen with present in SSP and S. Besides having nitrogen present in SSP and S absent in DAP, a key driver has been the short supply of diammonium phosphate and government not providing enough subsidy to cover the import production cost. The center has informally fixed maximum retail price of 27,000 max per ton of DAP. That, along with subsidy of 21,000 and a special concession of 3,500, takes the gross realization to 52,000 per ton. As against this, the ruling landed price of the DAP alone is $636 or $55,000. Adding customs duty, port handling, bagging, interest, and dealer margin and other expenses, 65,000 per ton, making imports unviable. These have fallen from 5.1 million tons to 4.3 million tons in January 24-25. On the other hand, MRP of APS is just 1,000 lower at 26,000 per ton, and by selling twice the number of bags from the same quantity of phosphoric acid, companies are making some money, not losing as they are with the DAP now. The fiscal will likely see sales of NPKs for complex fertilizers touch 14 million tons, almost double the 7.3 million tons of 2013-14, much of this courtesy of 2020-013, which has steadily replaced DAP, ammonium phosphate sulfate. A similar marketing push is necessary for 10-26-26-0, 12-32-16-0, 15-15-15-0, and 14-35-14-0 so as to minimize direct application of MOP and selling only after incorporating into these complexes. The ultimate goal must be to cap, if not reduce, consumption of all-time high analysis fertilizers. The ultimate goal must be to cap, if not reduce, consumption of all high analysis fertilizers, and that includes urea. High analysis fertilizers, and that includes urea. So a good example is 2020-013 or ammonium phosphate sulfate, a complex fertilizer with 20% nitrogen, 20% phosphorus, 20% potassium, and 13% sulfur. A historic tea horse road connecting India-China through Tibet. China's ambassador to India, Zhu Fihang, on Sunday posted on X the historic tea horse road, which spanned more than 2,000 kilometers connecting China to India via Tibet. Ancient tea horse road witnesses the exchanges and interactions between China and India through the long river of history. Although not well known as Silk Road, which linked China and Europe, the tea horse road was crucial commercial pathway for centuries. Tea from China was transported to Xiang, Tibet, then shipped to Kolkata via the Himalayan passes. The Tea Horse Road does not refer to a single road but a network of branching paths that began in southwest China and ended in the Indian subcontinent. The two main pathways passed through the cities like Dali and Lijiang in the Yunnan province, reached Lhasa in Tibet before entering into the Indian subcontinent. The origin of Tea Horse Road can be traced to the role of Tang dynasty 618-907, the writings of the Buddhist monk Yijing, who gave some most detailed descriptions of the Nalanda University. Also available today mention products like sugar, textiles, and rice noodles being transported from southwestern China to Tibet and India, while horse leather, Tibetan gold, saffron, and other medicine herbs went to China. Over time, trade focused on teas and horses as official documents from the Song dynasty show. The main driver of this is believed to the demand for tea among tribal nomads. As article in National Geographic puts it, tea was a hot beverage in a cold climate. A cup of yak butter tea with its distinctive salty, slightly oily, sharp taste provided a mini meal for herders warming themselves over yak during fires in a wind-swept hinterland. The geographical features of the commercial goods, tea and horse in this case, promoted the complementarity exchange activities and formed the tea and horses exchange market. In fact, by the 10th century, official facilities were established along the border countries in China to control and supervise the trade. For instance, tea was pressed together and packed into bricks, a form of packing that remains popular till date and was akin to currency in medieval Tibet. In 1912, as the time of Qing dynasty came to an end, the Horsti Road would continue to remain significant. Domestic turmoil and foreign aggressions provided a unique opportunity for trading systems in the southwest China. Through the road, new techniques and goods were brought to the less developed mountainous regions of Yunnan. Additionally, with China now being at greater contact with the world market, Yunnan's tea industry rapidly expanded. Later, during the World War II, the road played a significant role in transporting supplies to the frontline battlefield in China. Later, during World War II, the roads played a significant role in transporting supplies to the frontline battlefield in China, with Japan controlling almost all the Chinese coastline and airspace. With the establishment of People's Republic in 1949, the Tea Horse Road witnessed gradual decline, most notably, porters who would carry loads up to 150 kg mostly stopped the back-breaking work following Mao Zedong's land reform. Of late, China has promoted tourism along the historic path. Linjiang became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1997. The UNESCO website says from the 12th century towards the Old Town Road of Linjiang has become important goods distribution center between Xinjiang, Yunnan and Tibet. Xinjiang, Yunnan and Tibet. Parents have find a favorite child finds large study. They may not admit it, but parents do have a favorite child that treats some children more favorably based on things such as gender, birth order, temperament, a new published study said. From Bihar to the world, Makhanas are a significant agricultural product of Bihar, accounting 85% of the world's production. In the past decade, its cultivation has undergone remarkable transformation, shifting from traditional pond-based farming system to a more efficient field-based system. As a result, the area under cultivation has expanded to over 35,000 hectares and production has doubled, currently at 56,000 tons. Area of 35,000 hectares, 56,000 tons. 35,000 hectares, 56,000 tons. Announcement of the creation of Makhana Board in Union Budget. The announcement of creation of Makhana Board in Union Budget of 25-26 marks a pivotal moment for the sector. This has potential to transform the Makhana's brand identity domestically and globally and enhance farmer incomes and state's GDP. In addition, the board will provide farmers with training resources and financial assistance to enable them to adopt modern cultivation techniques. Makhanas have been an integral part of Bihar's cultural and social fabric. Its presence in rituals and festivals reflects its cultural importance, and its growing recognition as a health superfood underscores its commercial potential. However, due to lack of food processing technology and limited market access, raw makhanas are sold at cheap prices. During her recent visit to Bihar in November 24, Finance Minister witnessed firsthand the immense potential of makhanas. The vision behind the board is to tackle the challenges focused on three key areas: production, processing, and marketing. Through targeted research and development, the board will introduce high-yielding varieties of makhanas, improve farmer practices, and offer training on modern techniques for better productivity. High-yielding varieties of makhanas, improve farming practices and training on modern techniques for better productivity. But we must go further, ensuring that farmers adopt modern cultivation techniques that minimize labor and increase yield per hectare. The Makhana board will also assist farmers in securing access to the necessary tools, equipment, and technology. The comprehensive approach will address the gap between traditional labor intensive methods currently used and more efficient practices that can boost productivity and profitability. The center is also establishing the National Institute of Food Technology in Bihar, which will provide a strong fillip to the makhana processing activities. The geopolitical indication tag for Mithila Makhana was an important milestone. In tandem with the Makhana board, the creation of FPO will empower farmers to tackle challenges collectively, access resources, and leverage economies of scale. FPOs offer comprehensive support to small farmers, providing end to end services that cover nearly every aspect of cultivation. FPOs offer comprehensive support to farmers, providing end to end services that cover almost every aspect of cultivation. They will increase farmers' bargaining power and facilitate exchange of knowledge and best practices, and this will lead to higher incomes and reduced dependencies on intermediaries, ultimately strengthening the economic position of Maghana farmers. Bihar has made some remarkable progress. Over 1,000 FPOs established across the state. Among these, 689 have been created under the Central Sector Scheme, 296 as part of the Javik Corridor Scheme, and 19 supported by the Bihar Horticulture State Produce Development Scheme. The Bihar Livelihood Promotion Society has facilitated formation of 61 FPOs, while NABARD has contributed to the establishment of more than 200 of them. Robust development underscores the state's commitment to boosting agricultural productivity and empowering its farmers. Agriculture Department of the Bihar government aims to expand the cultivation area of makhanas to 70,000 hectares by 2035, with seed production expected to nearly double in next 3 years. The growth will drive production of makhanas from 23,000 to 78,000 metric tons over the same period. The sector's value of the farmers level is projected from 550 crore to 39 crore 100 crore by 2035. The market value for cropped makhanas is anticipated to suggest surge from 2,000 crore to 13,000 crore. The expansion will enhance the sector's contribution to national economy. Employment opportunities will also expand, with farm level engagement expected to grow from 20,000 to 50,000 families by 2035. Post production value chain employment is set to increase from 5 lakh to 7 lakh individuals. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar once said, "One day every plate of the world will have a Bihari dish. This dream is beginning to come true." There are many countries where makhanas are exported. With the Makhana Board support, Bihar will be able to increase its share in the global market and create its business opportunities for farmers and exports alike. Further, the creation of export infrastructure will be vital. Darbanga's airport and the upcoming Purnia airport will facilitate smooth cargo handling domestically, and Patna's new greenfield airport will open new markets for healthy snacks such as makhanas in the Europe, US, and Middle East. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in a parliament, Bihar's makhana is about to reach the world. The Makhana board is game changer for Bihar. It holds the potential to transform the makhana industry from traditional farming activity into a modern export-oriented and profitable sector. By providing training, support, and infrastructure, the board will empower farmers, create jobs, and boost exports, and contribute to Bihar's overall economic growth. With collective effort of the government, farmers, and private sector, we can ensure that Bihar's makhana industry thrives for generations to come. This refers to the report Melanie Slam's left. Since World War II, the left liberal political thought has enjoyed the moral high ground. However, it is clear from utter utterances at the Conservative Political Action Conference in the US that the pendulum of dominant world political opinion has now swung to the right. A lot of ultra wokeism in the last decade has clearly not gone down with the world in general. It will be very interesting to see whether and how conservative leaders balance the inevitable need for personal freedom vis-a-vis highly structural edifices of power that they love so much. This refers to the report broken benches, dirty toilets, and playground littered with garbage are Jaywar school struggles. The construction of Noida International Airport has indeed added a feather to the cap of UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, but the report of the dilapidated condition of school puts a blot on this much touted rosy claims of Uttar Pradesh making rapid strides in the development in all sectors. It is a sad commentary on the lopsided nature of development in a state and beyond. The concerned government should take this report and very seriously and shift gears to work towards improving infrastructure in education sector. This refers to the report, even those against Congress vote for me. That's what party needs. Tharoor, I wholeheartedly agree with Shashi Tharoor's perspective on transcending party politics to support commendable initiative of opponents. Regrettably, many of our legacy politicians remain entrenched in the outdated notion that the role of opposition is simply to oppose the government regardless of its action. Ironically, when the same parties are in power, they expect the new opposition to abandon such tactics. This refers to the report government examines if new framework is needed to regulate digital platforms. The Supreme Court's sharp condemnation of Ranveer Al-Habadia's words along with a gag order restricting his content creation signals a broader shift in India's approach to digital expression. Signals a broader shift in India's approach to digital expression. This blanket gag on order on El Habadia, even if his comments were distasteful, risk setting a precedent where courts act as moral arbiters rather than defenders of free speech. While content moderation is essential in a digital ecosystem flooded with unfiltered material, regulation must be clear, consistent, and mindful of constitutional freedoms. The language we speak. We need to open up the tired political debate and focus on lingualism rather than Hindi. The stage is set for another round of political debate on three language formula. Ironically, our policymakers will debate the merits of 3 versus 2 just as countries sleepwalks into a de facto one language policy, an English only policy that flies in the face of common sense and expert wisdom on education. Worse, the state-sponsored cognitive, cultural and civilizational regress from multilingualism to monolingualism is being celebrated as modernity. Three-language formula is the official name for a policy that school children should be taught three languages. 1968 compromise suggested following Hindi, English and modern Indian language, preferably one of the southern languages in the Hindi speaking areas and Hindi, English and regional language in the non-Hindi speaking states. This compromise was arrived when the chief ministers of the country started together to work out a language policy in the wake of anti-Hindi protest in the south, first mooted by the Radhakrishnan Commission in 1948-49, accepted by the first Education Commission or the Kothari Commission, and the formula was incorporated in the first and second education policy. Here is the basic rationale of the three language formula. India is not just plurilingual in that Indians speak different languages. India is multilingual in that most of the communities and individuals use more than one language. Therefore, our education system must be geared towards survival and promotion of the multilingualism that is constitutive of Indian identity. That is considerable evidence now to show that multilingual education helps cognitive flexibility, divergent thinking, scholastic achievement, and creativity and social tolerance. Three language formula is just convenient way of operationalizing multilingualism. and expert groups of linguistics and educators, including Dr. D.P. Patnaik and Ramakant Agnihotri, concluded that three language formula is not a goal or limiting factor in language acquisition, but rather a convenient launching pad for the exploration of expanding horizon of knowledge and promotion emotional integration of the country. The group recommended that children can learn step by step more than three languages, as learning additional languages actually helps the learning of the first and second language. What's the debate then? The union government has withheld a substantial grant under the Samagra Shiksha scheme from the Tamil Nadu for its non-compliance with the national education policy. The Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, M.K. Stalin, refused to accept the diktat on the ground that his party is opposed to the three language formula. The state has always taught two languages, Tamil and English, insisting on third language says is a pretext to impose Hindi. Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan says Tamil Nadu government will have to abide by the constitution. Stalin has asked Pradhan to cite the relevant provision of the constitution. Given its emotional overtones and the assembly election in Tamil Nadu next year, this confrontation is likely to be played out when the parliament resumes budget session. No doubt the DMK government has good reasons to be offended and suspicious. Narendra Modi government has repeatedly violated the letter and spirit of federalism. The Tamil Nadu governor is brazenly acting on behalf of the BJP. The Modi government has repeatedly encroached upon the powers of the state governments in the education sector, the policy of appointment of the vice chancellors being the latest instance. Besides, the union government cannot use central funds as a stick to force state governments to adopt education policies. The central government cannot use central government funds as a stick to force state governments to adopt education policies, and that too on sensitive issues like language choice. Having said that, there are many issues with NAP, but the TLF is not one of them. The fact that NEP has simply reiterated the TLF, which was integral part of the first and second education policy, documents as well. If anything, the NEP of 2020 actually dilutes the formula by omitting any mention of Hindi. Now, the TLF is that children should be taught any three languages chosen by the state, provided two of these three languages should be native Indian languages. And it allows classical languages like Sanskrit and Tamil to be counted within two languages. So, if Tamil Nadu wants, it can teach Tamil plus Malayalam or Telugu or Kannada and English. It could even teach Tamil, classical Tamil, and English to meet the requirements of new Tamil three language formula. So Tamil Nadu can consider three language formula without any fear of Hindi imposition. So instead of opposing the three language formula, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister could offer to accept it, provided it uniformly implemented across all states of the Indian Union. He could offer to introduce Hindi in Tamil Nadu schools, provided all Hindi speaking states adopt Tamil or any other South Indian language as third language, as was indeed envisaged in the original formula, or else the state could introduce classical Tamil as the third language, besides English and Tamil, just as Hindi speaking states have introduced Sanskrit as the third language. Such a move could highlight the simple fact that it is not Tamil Nadu but Hindi states that have sabotaged the three language formula. So instead of opposing the three language formula, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister could offer to accept it, provided it is uniformly implemented across all states. He could offer to introduce Hindi in Tamil Nadu, provided all Hindi speaking states adopt Tamil or any South Indian language as third language, as was indeed envisaged in the original formula. Or else the state could introduce classical Tamil as the third language, besides English and Tamil, as Hindi speaking states have introduced Sanskrit as the third language. Such a move could highlight the simple fact that it is not Tamil Nadu but Hindi states have sabotaged the three language formula. Originally, consensus was Hindi taking stage to teach another modern Indian language, preferably a South Indian language. Initially, there were some plans of teaching Tamil in UP, Telugu in Haryana, but soon Hindi states found the shortcut Sanskrit, or rather, a rudimentary and mechanical rote learning of the language was presented as the third language, thus bypassing the need to learn any other script or language. So, effectively, three language formula became an unequal bargain. While non Hindi speakers were required to learn Hindi, Hindi speakers were not required to reciprocate. The political resentment against the three language formula, it is time to call this bluff. If the central government is serious about three language formula and about not imposing Hindi, it should not make TLF a condition for release of central grant. Instead, it should call a meeting of chief ministers on the same lines as in 1968 and evolve a national consensus. And it must not allow Hindi speaking states to get away with Sanskrit as a substitute for third language. This could help open up tired political debate on language and focus on multilingualism rather than Hindi. This would be a test of our political class to take on elephant in the room, the hegemony of English in our education system. It may be easier to resist a repressive and authoritarian state or to stand up to an industrial military complex than to break free of the dense web of power that is the rule of English language. Tackling terror together, Tahavur Rana's extradition to India could foster conversation on need for cooperation between Delhi and global partners. The October 2009 arrest of two individuals of Pakistani origin, David Coleman Headley, also known as Daud Gilani, a US citizen, and Tahavur Rana, a naturalized Canadian citizen by US officials, unraveled key strands on global terror networks in Pakistan and Afghanistan-Pakistan border. The roles of these two, alongside senior leaders of Pakistan-based Al-Qaeda and its affiliates, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Harkatul Jihadi Islami (HJI), under the direction of Pakistani deep state, were clearly exposed in the chilling testimonies of Headley, who became an accused turned approver before US and Indian courts. For India, key members of this networks were responsible for the deadly Mumbai attacks from November 26, 28, as well as planning the terror attacks across Delhi and Mumbai between 2006 and 2009. The hard evidence presented by the US prosecutors that resulted in a 35-year prison sentence for Headley and 14 years for Rana. Headley, who pleaded guilty, is serving his sentence, while Rana, who did not plead guilty, has completed his 14-year sentence in the US. Rana's extradition to India has been approved by US courts. It is unlikely that Rana will plead guilty before Indian courts. However, his trials could potentially foster an informed public discourse on the threat posed by Pakistan based global networks not only to India but to the global community. Following the 9/11 attacks in the US, Pakistan became reluctant ally in the US's war of terror in the region, having cultivated Al-Qaeda-led and supported terrorist and extremist networks across regions for decades. Pakistani deep state, unsurprisingly, did not sever those ties. There is a widespread knowledge that while acting against select targets for the US reward money, the deep state continued to strengthen proxies, undermine the war on terror in the region and beyond. The network aligned with Headley and Rana is prime example of Pakistan's duplicity as a counter-terrorism ally. Headley, a drug smuggler who became an agent for the US Drug Enforcement Agency, thereby avoiding closer scrutiny connected with Al Qaeda, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and Pakistani army officers in the Afghan-Pakistan region around 2000, all working in tandem. Their targets included Western and Jewish individuals and locations in Pakistan, India, and Europe. Using a US passport, traveling freely as a Westerner, attempting to establish international branches of business run by Rana, Headley visited India and Denmark even after the 2008 Mumbai attacks. In Denmark, the plan included Mumbai style attacks to avenge the publication of cartoons depicting Prophet Muhammad. Western media extensively reported the details of the plans in Europe involving sleeper cells cultivated across the US, UK, Sweden, France, Germany, and Denmark. In his testimonies and other evidence provided to US prosecutors, Headley identified Ilyas Kashmiri, a former Pakistani army commando, as an Al Qaeda kingpin for external operations against the West, among other senior terrorist leaders. In January 2010, a US federal jury indicted Kashmiri for offenses related to planning the attack, and in Denmark, subsequently, the US State Department declared him as a specially designated global terrorist in August. Notably, the reward for information leading to Kashmiri's location was increased to $5 million in April 2011, and he was killed in US drone attacks in South Waziristan, Pakistan in June 2011. It cannot be confirmed whether Headley's cooperation with officials, as agreed to his guilty plea, led to Kashmiri's targeting. However, Headley likely provided valuable information on the matter. It is important to recognize that individuals within the network may have roles that remain undiscovered in investigations across the US, India, and Europe. There is substantial reason to believe that the network contains additional nodes, possibly operating independently. For example, over a year after Headley's arrest, his plan was being replicated by four ethnic North American African operatives based in Sweden, holding citizenships or resident permits of Sweden or Denmark. Munir Dahiri, Sabri Jului, Munir Awad, and Umar Abdallah were arrested while on their way to carry out Mumbai-style attacks on the Jalandhar Poster newspaper, which had published the Prophet's cartoons. The media has reported on the training and connections of some of these operatives in Pakistan, at least one common contact with Headley. There is a compelling case for the global community to fully exposure and disrupt such networks operating from Pakistan to prevent future attacks. The Financial Action Task Force sanction regime against Pakistan elicits some cooperation from the Pakistani deep state concerning the network involving Headley. However, recent attacks in J&K demonstrate that the Pakistani deep state has not abandoned its terror projects. Such networks may be readily visible in India. Their clandestine planning against or other countries or targets in the region will be difficult to detect before damage is inflicted. Therefore, only in-depth and sustained counter-terrorism cooperation between India and global partners can disrupt these invisible networks. Further, only shared threat perceptions and influenced by geopolitical dynamics can sustain such partnerships. For the President of the United States to dismiss the appalling sacrifices of the Ukrainians as their own fault, and to make deals with Ukraine without Ukrainian or NATO involvement, and to indulge his admiration of the tyrant in the Kremlin goes for any beyond any behavior that Americans should tolerate. Washington Post. If Virat Kohli, 36-year-old, can take India to a win while also scoring a ton, that what would happen would you rather remember? Three low-hanging reforms CMs have helped raise numbers of high-wage employers by digitization, decriminalization, and rationalization. Digitization, decriminalization, and rationalization. Most employers relate to Bahadur Shah Jafar's lament, उम्र दरा उम्र दराज मांग कर लाए था 4 दिन, दो आरज़ू में काट गए, दो इंतजार में. After negotiating a life for 4 days, of 4 days, two were spent dreaming and two waiting. In their wait for easing of the crushing compliance burden, states government account for 80% of criminal provisions, 65% of filings, 63% of compliances for employers. Chief ministers can raise the number of high-wage employers through three flick of a pen reforms. decriminalizing, digitizing, and rationalizing employer compliance. History suggests that there are no poor people, only people in poor places. Your wages depend on where you live and where you work. CMs have their plates full of capacity building, education, healthcare, institution, law infrastructure reform. These takes years. Legislative or flick of a pen reforms to 1 lakh plus compliances, filings, jail provisions foisted on employers may be quicker and impactful because they address irrational workflows, interpretation subjectivity, and uncertainty. Difference between how the law is written, interpreted, and enforced. Difference between how the law is written, interpreted, and enforced. Decriminalization: 80% of the India's 26,000 employer jail provisions can be removed by CMs. For instance, the innovative Jan Vishwas bill delivered meager outcomes. Only 110 of the 5,200 central employer jail provisions were removed because of the vested interest as a status quo bias and bureaucratic incentives for no punishment for doing nothing but hounding for something going wrong. CM should adopt a reversing the gaze philosophy which mandates the removal of all criminal provisions except for three criteria: physical harm to individuals, international intentional fraud against any stakeholders, and societal externalities so significant that violator cannot provide adequate compensation, such as issues related to public order, national security, or trust in property rights. There should be no jail provision in general clauses that specify a crime or define it too broadly, as well as stances of delay or inaccuracies in filings, procedural infractions, incorrect calculations, or wrong formats. These five criteria should be applied retroactively to all existing laws and should become the filter for future legislation and regulators. Jan Vishwas 2.0 coming soon could eliminate about 40% of the 2000 plus employer criminal provisions using these criteria. Madhya Pradesh and Tamil Nadu have made small starts, while Gujarat, Karnataka, and Odisha are considering projects. Digitization: 65% of India's 69,000 employer compliances can be made paperless, presenceless, and cashless by CMs. India's unique digital public infrastructure framework has delivered vaccine certificates, highway tolls, deduplicated welfare records and payments. RBI's initial UPI target of billion monthly transactions has now been revised to a billion daily transactions. Utilizing DPI framework for compliance got a boost with recent announcements on PAN 2.0, an entity locker, a single source of truth, tamper-proof, and authenticated document repository for all government issued licenses, registrations, and permissions. CM should implement state employer compliance grids (SECG), replicating the non-profit open architecture technology layer of DPI to facilitate filing periodic returns. 65% of India's 69,000 employer compliances can be made paperless. India's unique DPI framework has delivered vaccine certificates, highway tolls, deduplicated welfare records, and payments. RBI's initial UPI target of billion monthly transactions has now been revised to a billion daily transactions. Using DPI framework for compliance to got a boost with recent announcement on a PAN 2.0, the entity locker, single source of truth, tamper-proof and authenticated document repository for all government issued licenses. CM should implement state employer compliance grids. State employer compliance grids replicating the non-profit open architecture technology layer of DPI to filing periodic returns and issuing licenses, registrations, NOCs, and consent orders. State employer compliance grids would also enable the extraction of distributed and diverse compliance data that currently hinders the government's ability to sniff defaults, delays, and frauds. State grids should connect to the national initiatives when they are ready. DPI framework combines with the new world of software as a service to enable CMs to live with the SECG, State Employer Connectivity Grid, Compliance Grid, State Employer Compliance Grids. States employer compliance grids are being considered by Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh with varying glide paths for the individual departments' back-end integration. Rationalization. Sardar Patel's steel framed civil service has become a steel cage when India's needs are shifting from integration and stabilization. Many of the 20 million civil servants of state governments inhabit toxic thought worlds where things are prohibited till permitted and people guilty till innocent. Civil service reform is per complex, so tighter structures are better place to start. Japan, UK, and US have 15, 22, and 25 cabinet members respectively. My guesstimate of the government departments are 72, 63, and 54, etc. The philosopher Karl Polanyi argued that all economic systems are shaped by society, culture, and politics, and suggested that well-functioning labor, product, and capital markets are hardly inevitable. Prime Minister Modi's suggestion that 29 chief ministers matter more than one prime minister reinforces Polanyi's thesis. Labor markets are local and worm-eye views of the daily life of entrepreneur offers more specific, finite, actionable policy insights than a bird's-eye view. India's problem of an employed poverty arises from too many people working on firms, too many self-employed people, too few cities with 2 to 4 million people working in factories, and too few non-farm employees with the productivity to pay higher wages. The best advice for ambitious CMs aiming to deliver the great transformation of mass prosperity comes from Nobel Prize winning economist Daniel Kahneman. We instinctively step on the accelerator to go faster but get better results by taking a foot off the brake. The new right, liberal voices of the West are being challenged at the source. The response can come only from understanding, not denigration. The institutions and values formed up in Europe and US, the West in the last decade of 20th century are facing a crucial moment of reckoning. Western liberalism and much-touted rules-based order championed by Washington and Brussels arguably reached their pinnacle after the G7 was expanded to include Russia in 1998. The end of history moment, though now seems a thing of the past, the economic vision as articulated Washington Consensus with a focus on free market, state liberalization, and fiscal discipline began eroding with the 2008 financial crisis and the rise of China. It is now being challenged by the Donald Trump in its very place of its origin. It can be said to be framed by recent political events, the election results in Germany and the speeches of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Conservative Political Action Conference in the US and the US VP JD Vance at the Munich Security Conference. Rather than ignore or denigrate the political ideological frameworks that are being writ large on the global landscape, liberal politics need to understand and engage with them. Even as he bore full responsibility for the poor showing of the Social Democratic Party, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz rejected the possibility of even speaking to the ADF, Germany's far-right outfit, riding on an anti-immigrant campaign. Is now the second largest party in the legislature. The upward climb of the AfD is a piece with the rise of many parties once thought to be on the fringe. The question, though, is why conservative leaders like Meloni have an explanation. It would not do to merely dismiss it as self-serving, while liberal leaders like Bill Clinton or Tony Blair were hailed as statesmen when they worked together. She says when Trump, Meloni, Modi talked, they called a threat to democracy. This is left double standard. but we are used to it. The good news is people no longer believe in their lies. Despite all the mud they throw at us, citizens keep voting for us. The upward climb of the alternative for Germany is of a piece with the rise of many other parties once thought to be on the fringe. The question, though, is why conservative leaders like Melanie have an explanation. It would not do to merely dismiss it as self serving, while liberal leaders like Bill Clinton and Tony Blair were hailed as statesmen when they worked together. She says when Trump, Melanie, and Modi talk, they are called a threat to democracy. This is the left's double standard, but we are used to it. And the good news is when people no longer believe in their lies, despite all the mud they throw at us, citizens keep voting for us. Vance, for his past, has pointed to issues that have defined the culture wars in US, free speech versus hate speech, abortion, prayer in public spaces, and urged Europe to look at the hypocrisies and inconsistencies within. There are now ascendant political parties across Europe, and beyond that will echo Melanie and Vance, the despondency shown by Scholz, and the basket of deplorables view of those who voted for the right, however, is myopic and self defeating. It is important to acknowledge that a once formidable consensus is under siege and that there are several complicities in its apparent breakdown. It is vital to recognize that the challenger also contains multitudes, that is, no singular right wing. Abortion and gun control might be divisive issues in the US, for instance, they are not a major feature of the political conservation. On the right in India, the crisis for liberal politics is also born of its own lack of agility and imagination. Any way out of it must begin with fresh idea, a much needed rethink. In Germany, discontent over economy, immigration seeks new political calibration. German elections resulted in victory of center-right Christian Democratic Union in alliance with Bavarian Christian Social Union. As anticipated, right-wing Alternative for Germany (AfD) has secured the second place, reflecting a shift in the right in German politics. Meanwhile, the ruling Social Democratic Party has suffered a significant setback, losing over 9% of its vote share. Despite the victory, CDU's performance is underwhelming, failing to surpass the 30% mark. AfD has doubled its strength. Under Friedrich Merz, the CDU has shifted further to the right, moving away from Angela Merkel's centrist open immigration stance and economic strategies to a more conservative approach. Coalition negotiations typically take 2 months. However, the urgency of the economic and geopolitical situation demands swift action. Germany's economy, largest in Europe, is stagnating with a growth rate of just 0.03%. Beyond economic concerns, immigration has become a critical issue. Recent terrorist attacks involving immigrants who were not deported despite legal grounds have intensified calls for stricter asylum regulations. Although AfD is Eurosceptic, its strong performance does not signify broad rejection of Germany's EU role or foreign policy commitments. However, its energy policy diverges significantly, advocating for a resumption of Russian gas imports even if it violates EU's directives. The Green setback likely removes them from the power for the foreseeable future, prompting a reassessment of their national strategy. Many critics blame Green policies for exacerbating Germany's economic and energy challenges. In eastern Germany, where AfD has gained ground, the Left Party, descended from the former East German Communist Party, has surpassed the 5% threshold. Germany's ability to restore economic viability is critical to maintaining its leadership role in Europe. Additionally, Germany must recalibrate in European and transatlantic relations. Flaring of tension between Karnataka and Maharashtra over Belgavi points to the need for effective dispute resolution. The altercation last week between two Marathi students and a bus conductor of the KSRTC reignited a decades-old debate in Karnataka and Maharashtra over Belgavi. Independ- Since independence, both states have been laying claim to Belgavi. The dispute has persisted through different political dispensations, occasionally rising to the forefront of political contention in border districts. During the colonial period, Belgavi was part of the Bombay Presidency. According to the 1881 census, Kannada speakers comprise 64.39% of the Belgavi's population. In 1966, the central government established the Mahajan Commission, which upheld Karnataka's claims. In 2004, Maharashtra government filed a petition in the Supreme Court under 131B saying that Marathi-speaking population in the Karnataka felt insecure. The case is still pending. The Interstate Council was mandated to support center-state and interstate coordination and cooperation in India, but since its formation in 1990, it has 11 meetings. Last meeting was held in 2016. The altercation last week between two Marathi students reignited decades-old debate between Karnataka and Maharashtra over Belgavi, a merely known as Belgaum district on the northern border of Karnataka. Students allegedly assault the conductor for not speaking Marathi. Since independence, both states have been laying claim. The dispute has persisted, occasionally rising to the forefront. During the colonial period, Belgavi was part of Bombay Presidency. According to 1881 census, Kannada speakers comprise 64% of the Belgavi's population, while 26% spoke Marathi. State Reorganization Commission included Belgaum and 10 other Marathi-dominated talukas in the Mysore state. The Maharashtra government submitted a memorandum to the Ministry of Home Affairs demanding 814 villages, including the urban settlements of Belgaum, Karwar and Nipani. In 1966, central government established the Mahajan Commission, which upheld Karnataka's claim. In 2004, Maharashtra government filed a petition in the Supreme Court under Article 131B saying that Marathi-speaking population in Karnataka felt insecure. The case is still pending. 21 Maharashtra CM Uddhav Thackeray released a book titled Maharashtra Karnataka Seemavad Sangharsh Ani Sankalp to make Maharashtra's case. That year, the following year, Karnataka Assembly passed a resolution that no land would be ceded to Maharashtra, prompting a similar resolution from Eknath Shinde government. The Interstate Council was mandated to support interstate and interstate coordination in India, but since its formation, it has 11 meetings, the last meeting held in 2016. Though the body was reconstituted in 2022, no meeting has been held. Tamil Nadu CM demanded that council should meet thrice a year to strengthen the spirit of cooperative federalism. Life insurance companies' earnings see margin squeeze of up to 400 basis points in quarter 3. IRDAI has asked insurance companies to offer high special surrender values to traditional endowment policies. Margins may be close to bottom due to expectation of a reduction in unit-linked insurance plans next year. What's ailing India's textile industry and government's attempt to improve competitiveness? India's textile industry is the largest in the world, spanning large value chains. Despite being a global leader in cotton and synthetic fiber production, India's textile and apparel has recorded sluggish growth in the recent years. After China, India is the second largest producer of cotton, accounting 24% of the global production. 60 lakh farmers, employs 4.5 crore people. While fiber consumption in India tilts heavily towards cotton, textile industry also consumes natural fibers like wool and jute. India is also the world's second largest producer of man-made fibers, with Reliance Industries Limited in the polyester fiber and Aditya Birla Group's Grasim Industries Limited as the only domestic producer of viscose fiber. Despite being a global leader in production, the man-made fiber consumption is just 3.1 kg per capita compared to 12 kg in China and 22 kg in North America. Overall fiber consumption, including, is low as 5.5 kg compared to 11 kg. Roughly 80% of India's textile value chain is concentrated in MSME clusters. With its own specialization, Bhiwandi in Maharashtra is key hub for fabric production. Tirupur in Tamil Nadu leaks in t-shirts and undergarments. Surat specializes in polyester and nylon fabric, and Ludhiana for woolen garments. Bhiwandi, Tirupur, Surat, and Ludhiana. The size of the India's textile apparel industry cannot be understated. Contributes 13% of India's production, 12% to exports, and 2% to GDP. Between financial year 2014-19, manufacturing in the textile sector grew at a CAGR of 0.4%, while apparel sector grew 7.7%. Between textiles 2024, textile sector contracted by 1.8 each year. Apparel sector grew by 8.2%. While India runs a massive trade surplus in textile and apparel, growth in overall exports have been muted over the past few years. In FY24, exports stood at $34 billion, just over that $33 billion in FY20. Labor-intensive garment and apparel sector exported goods worth $14 billion. The cotton textile sectors, which includes home textiles like bed sheets and towels, recorded higher exports at $12 billion. Low export competitiveness. India lags behind China, Vietnam, and Bangladesh in textile exports due to high production costs. For instance, Vietnam exported apparel worth $40 billion in 2023. The countries benefit from vertically integrated supply chains, allowing them to manufacture garments at far competitive price. One key challenge for India is fragmented cotton supply chain spread across multiple states. A lack of localization and complexity of the value chain, in turn, results in higher costs relative to global competitors. In contrast, vertically integrated fiber to fashion firms in competitive nations such as China and Vietnam export low products. Simple and liberal custom producers further reduce regulatory cost. In the man-made fiber sector, high raw material costs further erode India's competitiveness. With quality control orders restricting imports of polyester and viscose fibers, domestic yarn makers have to rely on significantly pricier local alternatives. Manufacturing slump prompted February rate cut, RBI MPC member. Sensex sinks below 75,000 mark as FPI continues selling spree. Government seek merchant banks to sell stakes in public banks. Nestle India plans small price changes in a bid to counter inflation. Xi talks with Putin, affirms no limits partnership in a call on war anniversary. Merv faces hard road to form a government after German election win. Musk mailed to government workers, some told to comply, others to ignore. Bangladesh students who ousted Hasina set to launch party. France begins largest child rape trial, surgeon accused of abusing 299 patients. Syria National Dialogue Conference set to kick off, EU started easing sanctions, Pope still critical. First census in 4 decades completed. US government workers who have been buffeted by President Donald Trump's chaotic return to power face more uncertainty on Monday when many of them will be required to justify their jobs to Elon Musk, a chainsaw wielding billionaire tasked with slashing the federal budget. Bangladesh students who ousted Hasina said to launch party. Bangladesh students who were at the forefront of last year's protest that ousted the then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina are set to launch a political party this week, two sources with a direct knowledge of the development said. Macron in US to discuss Ukraine with Trump. French President Macron arrived at the White House Monday for talks with Trump. expected to cover the prospect of ending the war amid differences on how to proceed. He became the first European leader to visit him since he gained power. In a post on Truth Social after a call, Trump said he was also in serious discussion with Russian President Putin about ending the war and major economic development transactions which will take place. Still reeling from Trump call, President Vladimir Zelensky, a dictator and seeking elections, Kiev said it was in the final stages of agreeing a deal with Washington to provide access to its mineral wealth. G7 leaders expressed goal of ending war, says Trump. US officials stay away from Kiev ceremony. US joins Russia to vote against UN resolution on Ukraine war. India and China abstain. Russian Federation and United States. US joined Russia to vote against UN resolution on Ukraine war. India and China abstain. UN passes resolution 93 in favor, 18 against, 65 abstain, rejects US resolution. For the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine, the US voted with the Russians in an attempt to block a draft resolution by Ukraine at the UN that calls for a de escalation and early cessation of hostilities and a peaceful resolution of war against Ukraine. Resolution was passed with the Europeans and the G7 voting in favor of the draft resolution. India abstained, along with China, one of Russia's closest allies since the war broke out. The final score 93 countries, including major European countries like Germany, UK, France, and G7, minus the US, voted in favor, 18, including Russia, US, Israel, Hungary, voted against, and 65 abstained. That's lower than the previous vote, which saw over 114 nations condemn Russia's aggression. CAG flags dodgy pollution okays, faulty air monitors, parking funds, reports on Delhi pollution set to be tabled in assembly, air quality monitoring stations located near trees and roads which possibly skews readings, pollution under control certificates being issued at the same time for two vehicles. In shadows of US tariff, India back to table for trade talks with UK and EU. As US President Donald Trump moves to upend the World Trade Order with high tariff threats against New Delhi, restarted negotiations for two long-stalled big-ticket trade deals with Britain's Labour Party led administration just ahead of the President of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen's visit to India for trade talks. Tunnel rescue operations hit new challenge, wall of mud and water. PM Tea Industry its workers will give pace to Assam's progress. 8,600 women and men from state tea tribes perform the traditional Jhumoir, also spelled as Jhumur or Jhumur dance. Jhumur dance in the presence of Prime Minister. Prime Minister Modi, Union External Affairs Minister, and other foreign dignitaries are in the state to attend Assam government's Advantage Assam 2.0 summit. Jhumur, performed by women while men play traditional instruments, is a popular traditional dance which has a central place in festivals celebrated by tea tribes comprising 17% of Assam's population. The BJP government is making Assam progress in serving its tea tribes to increase their wages. A bonus has been announced for workers of the Assam Tea Corporation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi with BJP with Madhya Pradesh Governor Magnu Bhai C. Patel and Chief Minister Mohan Yadav in Bhopal on Monday. India proud of its contributions to US peacekeeping, Jaishankar. I treated it like every day was my last day with basketball, LeBron James. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.